Ankita, welcome to the mock interview.
Thank you, sir. Good evening,
Ankita,
sir.
good evening. Please tell us, Ankita, about yourself, your academic qualifications, your work experience after you did your graduation, and your main hobbies.
Okay, sir. As rightly mentioned by you, sir, my name is Ankita Jain. I have done my BTech in computer science from Delhi Technological University. After that, I worked in Qualcomm India Private Limited, Bangalore for 14 months. After that, I worked in DRDO as a scientist. At present, I'm serving as an officer training in Indian Audit and Account Service. Sir, my hobbies are mainly dancing, cooking, and playing chess.
So tell me, Ankita, how the digital technology, the computer sciences have been applied uh, in the accounts and auditing uh, ecosystem uh, and in the CAG.
So, in both audit and accounts, we are trying to incorporate computer science. In accounts, we have a system called VLC system. Through this system, we do all the accounting. So most of our accounting is automated as of now. In audits, we are trying to use computer technology by retrieving the digital data from the departments. We do sampling and selection, and all these things we do using computer science. And moreover, sir, during my on-the-job training, I did a strategy paper in which I proposed a strategy through which we can mainstream computer science in e-governance and in particularly in audit.
And Ankita, now that you are aiming to get into higher services and IAS, uh, suppose you were the district collector, then how would you apply computer science in?
Data which is being generated today is digital. So if we want to do analysis of a particular area in our district itself, if we want to do some analysis related to health or is it related to education, we can do it using computer science. So during audit also, I came across education, one audit report on education. We use data extensively, and if similar analysis can be done beforehand during the administration itself at the collectorate office, I think it would be very helpful, and in this way we can utilize the computer science in administration also.
You mentioned about education, and in fact, computer science and digital technology has really played a very important role in sustaining the education, the school education in the country, wherever the internet availability has been there. So now everyone is talking about whether to reopen schools or not. Now, with the kind of uh, the threat and scare of the third wave, with the children of school going children, not a single one having been inoculated or vaccinated. How do you see the idea of reopening the schools and putting the children to risk? Or you think that computer education, education through computer science, long distance is enough to sustain for some more time?
Um, Sir, I believe that school is an institution which is much more than just the books and technology. We learn more in schools than at sitting at home. So, given the pandemic situation, we can open the schools, but in a phased manner. We should first see how how much our children are resistant to the uh, virus. So recently, in news I heard that Sero study said that 80% of the children have showed the results, like they have the antibodies. And also in some results, we found out that children of younger age do not get severe COVID. So maybe through that we can start, but we should first deliberate more over this. And secondly, sir, a lot of our economic activities have started. A lot of our other institutions have opened. So we can consider opening schools also.
Okay. So that means uh, when still we are not so much aware of the behavior of COVID, how the virus behaves. Every day we find some study. So can we depend on this fact that the children, the smallest children will be least prone because they already have antibodies and subject them to the risk, especially keeping in view that when the elders and adults also don't follow COVID appropriate behavior and don't keep the mask, you think children of primary school will be able to put on mask, very religiously?
So that is a very valid point, and the a lot of its responsibility lies on parents and teachers. I agree that children might not follow COVID appropriate behavior so religiously. Even the adults we see at many places have not followed it. So, but sir, as a teacher and as a parent, it's my responsibility to teach my children. And moreover, sir, we should open the schools only after appropriate deliberations and after considering uh, all these scenarios where they can be affected. And we should maintain proper social distancing in the classrooms also. If need arises, we can divide the strength of one classroom into two. Instead of having one classrooms, we can, if one classroom has 60 children, maybe we can have two classrooms of 30 children, and then can follow proper social distancing and COVID appropriate behavior.
So we expect a 5-year-old or 6-year-old child in the class to follow COVID appropriate behavior and remain seated on his chair. Children have a habit of mingling with each other, all the time they crowd at a place. So you will, as district magistrate, tell me how would you manage such a thing in a school? How would you transport the students? How would you transport children?
Sir, in school buses also, we can have protocols of sitting and arrangements. We can have someone to monitor whether they are sitting at their places or not in the school buses itself, and also in the classroom itself. And we can have CCTV cameras. I agree that it is very difficult for children of 5 or 6 years ages to not mingle with themselves, and school is for that only, so that they can mingle with each other and learn from each other. But sir, most of us have learned to live with the mask, and I think it's time we teach our children also.
So Ankita, I come out of this the COVID and children ecosystem and ask you about the RBI's latest monetary policy, which was announced yesterday. Give me some highlights.
So sorry, I have not.
Okay, tell me about this retrospective tax amendment.
So, sir, recently our government has proposed to initiate a bill in which we will be which will be nullifying the effect of our 2012 bill, where we applied the retrospective taxation on the companies who were doing, like, selling their assets, Indian assets. So we were trying to impose tax on those buying those business. So that was done in 2012 law. Through 2012 law, now we're trying to nullify that law by initiating a new bill, which we will be doing away with this retrospective taxation.
So Ankita, I now pass on to Mr. Khanna. He will ask the next set of questions.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Ankita.
Good evening, sir.
So you are in audit and accounts?
Yes, sir.
You have spent some time in Shimla Training College?
Yes, sir.
So tell me more about Shimla and what for Shimla became famous in 1972?
Sir, Shimla is the capital city of Himachal Pradesh. Sir, here we have a lot of places like Mall Road and Jhaku Temple and many other temples over here. So in 1972, it was famous for Shimla Accord. There was a accord between uh, Pakistan, India, treaty in Shimla.
So what were the main points? Who signed this treaty, and what is the present status of Shimla Accord between India and Pakistan?
So it was a peace treaty and signed by the heads. Sir, I don't remember exactly the facts of the treaty.
Okay, so read about it because we have lived in Shimla, and it's one of the important happenings of Shimla.
Yes, sir.
And then relate it to the present day India's foreign policy with Pakistan. So what are the points of confrontation? Whether Shimla agreement violation is also one of them. All right. So I find that in your options, you have given Indian Revenue Service as a third option.
Yes.
Are
Sir.
you not happy in audit and accounts?
No, sir. I respect and honor my service. Sir, Indian Revenue Service I have given because I feel that I get to live at a place for more years in Indian Revenue Service compared to Indian Audit and Account Service. So this was the main reason for giving Indian Revenue Service. Moreover, options for deputations are more in Revenue Service.
Oh, and what about IAS? IAS, you have very frequent transfers. If you have heard of the cases of IAS officers who don't toe the line of politicians and they get transferred. So transfer is linked to any government job.
So that is true. But then I'll be staying in one state and getting to know that state for a longer period. In fact, I will be staying in a district and getting to know that district through and through.
Okay, Ankita, tell me, this pandemic has caused gender inequality in a big way, especially women gender inequality. What would you do if you were posted as a DM of any district to improve the gender inequality caused by pandemic?
So during pandemic, we saw that a lot of women lost their jobs. So, sir, my priority would be to focus on this area, mostly the employment. So, sir, for this, I'll try to encourage SHGs as much as possible. And sir, in urban areas, if possible, I'll try to see whether there can be any policy for employment in private. Most of the women were in the contract job who lost their job. So I'll try to see if something can be done in private jobs for women, if there can be some policy or incentivization through which we can encourage the retention of women in those jobs.
You took part in Himalayan trek also?
Yes, sir.
So what you have to say about pollution caused by all these trekkers who go to Himalayas, and how can we save Himalayas from pollution?
Sir, Himachal government has a policy for trekking. So my trek was in Himachal, and in fact, Uttarakhand government also has. So most of the treks which are being organized today, so they are collecting their waste and coming back with the waste itself. So I have been to Buran trek twice, Buran Pass twice, and during both the treks, we were collecting our waste ourselves, and we came back with all our waste. And even if there is someone, even if there is someone who's not following this policy, not following this, so we should have some monitoring mechanisms, and I'm quite sure that Himachal government has it, and also the other states where Himalayas are there and trekking is allowed.
Okay, it is said that if it can't be measured, it can't be improved and it can't be managed. As an auditor, you are supposed to audit the expenditure on happiness curriculum in the schools. All right, so how will you measure happiness? Because happiness, can it be measured? Can it be indexed? And how will you justify expenditure on happiness curriculum?
So, sir, this falls under the category of performance audit. So we can do a outcome-based audit where we don't just really focus on the quantity of expenditure, but also the quality of the outcome. So here, happiness, if I have to audit the expenditure on happiness, I need to find the parameters through which I can measure the happiness. So in that sense, I will try to figure out what are the parameters are there for happiness. It could be the related to the feedback from students, from children. It can be related to feedback from their parents and also teachers. And also we will try to see after incorporation of this curriculum, how their performance in other subjects are also improved. So these are 2-3 parameters which I'm able to think of as of now, but I'm sure there could be more parameters through which we can quantify the happiness, and then we can measure and audit it.
In the era of disruptive technology, especially blockchain, what would be the future of accounts and audit?
Sir, I believe that we can incorporate and utilize this technology in accounts and audit also, because in blockchain, everything is well retained. The information is well retained, which becomes an audit trail for us. So if that data is available to us, it will help us in our audits. In accounts also, sir, for accounting purpose, we can utilize the technology of blockchain. For example, if there is a major head related to some expenditure, suppose revenue expenditure related to police, its major head is 2055. So if we can start a block of which is related to 2055 and attach all accounting and all transactions to that particular block as it is being done in the blockchain, then I think we can utilize this technology for accounting purpose also.
IPS is your second choice.
Yes, sir.
Now, as an IPS officer, if you are posted and you get hold of a terrorist and you have the information that there would be a bomb blast and this terrorist knows all the details, would you put him to torture to extract the information? How would you get the information and save the city from the possible bomb blast? Only he has the information.
Okay, sir. Sir, I'm quite certain there are more ways apart from torturing a person to get the information. And as far as I have known Indian Police Service, I know that there are a lot of methods with them through which they can extract information from the person instead of torturing that person. So, sir, I will utilize those methods first to get the information. But, sir, if need arises that I am not getting the required information, I'll try to look for these locations as much as possible. I believe that our intelligence cell also has some kind of information. So based on that information and based on the hotspots in the area, I'll try to search and find out the spot where the bomb blast could happen. And sir, only as the last resort, because I believe that I have to save people also. I may go to that extreme also.
Okay, okay, thank you. Over to you, Mr. Sumesh.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Ankita.
Good evening, sir.
Okay, I see your optional subject is philosophy.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so can you differentiate between a thinker, a scholar, and a philosopher?
So, as a thinker basically can think on various lines, and I have to differentiate between a thinker and a scholar. Scholar basically, sir, it is very difficult to draw pinpoint boundaries between these three. But some degree of thinking may be less in scholar, because a scholar is one who basically studies and try to find results, like a researcher also. A thinker is, he can think innovative, he can think on a given line, like that he can think. So a philosopher is also a thinker, but I think thinking is more in a philosopher, and he tries to basically find the root of what he's thinking. He tries to make his philosophy consistent while thinking. So I think these are the differences between thinker, scholar, and a philosopher.
Is philosophy helping you in civil services? If yes, how?
So in philosophy, I have read about a lot of schools. So it has given me a lot of perspectives to look at a particular thing. So I think due to this, I have become more acceptable to others' views. I believe that there is not a single view which is right or wrong. There can be many shades of gray between black or white. So this is how philosophy has helped me. For example, in Syadvad of Jainism, or in Buddhism also, in Vedanta also. So Buddhism has looked at world from a different perspective, and Vedanta also has looked at world from a different perspective, and both are consistent. Similarly, in Jainism, there is a theory called Syadvad, which says there are various perspectives to look at a thing. So I think this is how philosophy is helping me in my civil service administration also.
Okay. Okay. Can you tell me about the recent issue between Mizoram and Assam, and how can you address the situation?
Well, recently it was seen that there was crossfire across the borders between Assam and Mizoram, and police was also involved in this firing. So this is rooted in a pre-independence dispute, border dispute, and 1875 boundary is what Mizoram says it is the boundary, and Assam believes that it is the 1933's boundary. So such disputes can be resolved only through dialogue, and I believe that there has to be a mediator force between them. For example, recently Center has also employed their neutral forces between them. So similarly, central government can help in the mediation and resolve the situation.
Can you tell me what is cryptocurrency? How is it different from digital currency? And how can I buy cryptocurrency in India?
Sir, any currency which can be encrypted is a cryptocurrency, and digital currency needs not be encrypted. So basically, if my cash is in digital form, it is a digital currency. But if I encrypt it using some algorithm, so that becomes a cryptocurrency. Sir, in India, earlier government was against the cryptocurrency, but recently Supreme Court has said that there is no ban. So I'm not really sure how we buy it, but it is allowed as of now.
Okay. Okay, I pass on to Chairman, sir.
You. So Ankita, we have a defined system of auditing the government, the departments. Now, this is an era of privatization of services. Now, can you think of the idea that the auditing of government departments, which is being done by the CAG and their officers, can be privatized and given to private auditors the way they are doing for corporate companies and also in the cooperative sector?
So in corporations, we generally do there are two kinds of audit: statutory audit and supplementary audit. Even if a private firm is auditing these PSUs or corporations, CAG does audit afterwards, supplementary audit. So, sir, CAG's audit is in this sense inevitable because private firms are mainly driven by the profit motive, while the CAG is driven by the public service. And when it comes to the public purse, I think it should be kept at it should be kept in public hands only. So, sir, maybe we can try privatizing the auditing of these departments, but in the end, it will have to go through the CAG scrutiny, like we do the
Of confrontation as of today.
So on borders also we have confrontation, defense, and so apart from that we have confrontations in economic aspects. We have trade deficit with China, and we are competing for the foreign markets. And so as far as strategies related to the not so friendly neighbors of India, I think India and China has different stance over those. So at present, I could think of these three main confrontations between India and China.
So, Ankita, I have completed the questions which I wanted to have in this round. Now, the last question that I would ask you would be from a subject of your choice.
Okay, sir.
So, if you can let me know any subject or topic, I can ask a question from that area.
Sir, I believe that artificial intelligence in audit can be one area which can be explored.
Very nice. So tell us something if we have done any breakthrough of using AI in the auditing, and you can also tell us something more beyond AI.
Okay, sir. Sir, at present, CAG is developing systems which later on where we will be incorporating AI. In private sector, I have seen that AI has been incorporated in audit at various places. For example, there is one software called KPMG's Clara. So they are basically using this software for better visualization of their data using AI. Similarly, sir, we have algorithms such as supervised learning and unsupervised learning. These algorithms can be used in specific audits. For example, supervised learning can be utilized in compliance audit, and unsupervised learning can be utilized in financial audits. And sir, if we have to go beyond AI, then maybe we can think about blockchain and AI incorporated, and at a later stage, maybe quantum computing and AI incorporating. That will, because AI requires a lot of processing, and if we have the power of quantum computing, then maybe we can faster that process also.
Good. So Ankita, we finish our interview now.